All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back on the sidelines. Well, get in the game. Come on, it's Jacksonville's retirement coach here with Adam Wolf, president, CPA, and CFP of Wolf Retirement Navigation. Adam and the team would love for you to give them a call. Bet you've heard this number before, 904-232-8760, 904-232-8760, or go to wolfretirement.com and get that free portfolio analysis today. Adam, so good to have you in the studio. I mean, it's your show, but we're rarely in the same studio, so how you doing?
Doing great. Up here in Atlanta, shooting live with you. It was just wonderful. I love shooting with you, when I'm in my office and we're remote, but this is cool. We get to talk a little bit and do a little bit more one-on-one action here.
It's a lot of fun, too. We're so thankful you made the trip up here for this education seminar we're having at our Marketing Joint Impact Partnership here, and we're thankful our social media maven, Morgan's in the house getting some stuff here for the interwebs, and Rob's behind the glass on the 1 and 2s at the controls today. So last episode, we talked about scans. We tied in the overhyped story, feels like of the century. It's not of the century, but of Shedeur Sanders and his drop in the draft and how he actually got a prank phone call that had something to do with my home team, Atlanta Falcons. I'm not very proud of that at all. But we talked about scams. So be sure to check out our last episode. Those are on Apple and Spotify and on the media page of wolfretirement.com. Adam has a lot of stuff to watch out for in those. Today, we're going to talk about, Adam, you ready? Have you heard the word worry lately with all this market up and down? I mean, we actually have episodes before this that talk a little bit about market volatility and worry. So I'm sure the W word gets thrown around, but do your clients kind of clamor around and worry a little bit with all the volatility?
I mean, it's just human nature. It's emotions. When we see part of our portfolio that's tied to the stock market go up and down, that's out of our control, because of, one governmental thing or multiple things that are done in another country or another world away. And so worry does happen for a lot of folks, especially when we meet with them for the first time, Doug, because there's no plan in place. There's no plan to say, hey, of everything we have, we've been working our whole lives for, we don't know what the worst case could be.
Right.
And so once we go through the planning process, we come up with, hey, let's protect a portion of it because we do not need everything at risk. And let's put some in the market for risk. But we're monitoring, managing that as we go to make sure that you, as the client, as the investor, is comfortable with what a worst case scenario could be. I have some clients where the worst case scenario is $1. If they lose $1, it's horrible. Others, hey, we can have a lot at risk. And so, but everybody's in between, those two things. And so that's a way to reduce the worry and eliminate the worry. You're never going to eliminate it, but we're going to reduce it. And that's how you have a great retirement, is to reduce the risk and live your life. And that's what we do.
Yeah, and find out what that risk tolerance is. So if that speaks to you, get in touch with Adam and the team, Wolf Retirement Navigation, at wolfretirement.com. And, of course, you can dial them up to 904-232-8760. Well, to that point, Allianz, is that how you say it? I always say it wrong. I want to say Allianz. It's Allianz, the insurance company?
It's Allianz. I have a personal life insurance policy with them. So,
okay.
Allianz, yes.
Allianz, there we go, yes. And that we have a lot of material around the office that says that, and I always say it wrong. They did a study this year, retirement study, 1,000 Americans, and it found that 70% of Gen-Xers who are closer to retirement, so the older Gen-Xers, feared running out of money more than death, and even 61% of boomers who are thought to have been more prepared for this felt the same way. All right, those are big-time numbers. Fear of going broke more than fear of dying. So that being a real emotion, and I know you've talked about it a little, but how do we start putting together a plan to combat fear? Everybody's emotions are different. You can have the best plan ever and still be worried and fearful, but I feel like fear is not the best word to have in front of your retirement.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't say, hey, fear of public speaking. Remember that one? Was like that's worse than death too? Remember that one?
Yeah, come on.
But yeah, no, fear of running out
of public speaking.
The whole thing with risk and with worry and, running out of money, you're right to think that way. You're right to feel that way because, without those funds, especially in your later years, you're out of luck, like, what are you going to do? You're going to go back to work, hey, I got to have the one client, he jokes, hey, I'm going to be a greeter at Walmart.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? No, we're not going to be greeting at Walmart. Yeah. We'll move you to Winn-Dixie or Publix or do something. We'll do something else other than that. And we joke about it, but no, it's a fear because we all were raised differently. Some of the older retirees were raised by Depression era folks. And if you've ever been raised by Depression era folk, you lived on less. And because of that was the mindset. It was a scarcity mindset. And so as we go through life, half of my job by helping and navigating and advising my clients is to allow them, especially the ones that have saved, to start to spend and enjoy this money that they've worked their what's off for, to move. And we've talked about this in prior shows, to move more from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. That doesn't mean go crazy or go frivolous with your stuff. It just means come up with a plan and we help along the way, to keep as much in your pocket as possible. The major risks we face and we look at, the risk of running out of money, that's number one. And then in no specific order, market risk, having the right amount of risk in your retirement, tax risk, because taxes are going to have to go up in the future based on the way our government's running itself right now, even with Doge and everything else. It's still going to be ugly in the future. We have to get
still a lot of debt.
We have to prepare for the tax future. The healthcare, whether it's Medicare or long-term care costs, we have to address that. That's a risk. And then also, where you want your stuff to go when you're no longer here. You definitely don't want the government to get it, or a large portion of it. So passing that on, legacy to your kids, to your beneficiaries, to your folks, that's a big, big deal. So if you cover those and address those risks, we can be more comfortable in retirement to eliminate that worry and that fear of running out of money.
Well, for sure. And there's no guarantee you can manage any one person's emotion, all right? Because some people are just prone to it, no matter the best laid plan. I know one thing that people have questions about is they come in and they're like, there is no way. Like, I might be paying for 30 years of my life. There is no way I can have enough saved up for that if I don't have income coming in. And you actually use modeling software to show what that looks like and to make a plan where you're conservative enough, and I mean, frugal enough, so to speak, to make that money last, but also you're not living off of eating, canned Vienna sausage for 30 years either.
Let's hope not. That's disgusting, Doug.
Yeah, I know, right?
We shouldn't be eating that anyway, right? For health purposes. But yeah, it's a big deal. I'll give you an example of some clients come in. He recently retired. She had been retired for a little while. On paper, they don't have a tremendous net worth. They don't have a tremendous asset base. But what they do have, the client had multiple sources of income, big Social Security incomes, a pension from military service, a VA benefit, disability benefit that's tax-free. And on paper, they're like, wow, I wish we could have saved more. And I said to him, listen, this monthly amount that you're guaranteed for life with cost of living adjustments for these things, this amount of money, if I were to take somebody who had a very large 401k, they would need about $2 million in 401k to turn that into an income stream that you now have. So pat yourself on the back. And he turns to his wife. He goes, see, there you go. Pat me on the back. And so it was a whole fun thing. And they're going to be fine. But it takes planning to do that, because everything you can check off, it reduces that uncertainty and it reduces that anxiety. So it's little steps like that to get to a point where you're comfortable to enjoy it. And that's the goal of life, is to enjoy this stuff, because you've worked too hard to not. And you've worked decades to get to this point to not enjoy it.
Well, and we hear a lot about the silver wave, the tens of thousands of people that turn 65 every day right now as baby boomers are starting to hit retirement age. But that study had that highest worry number actually in those that hadn't retired yet, who may still be in the accumulation phase, where a lot of what they're looking ahead toward is based upon the performance of the market, which we know is volatile now. So days go really high, and then we have these big time nosedives as policy changed and things like that. And it also means that it's worth sitting down with an advisor to actually test your risk tolerance, because maybe it's just that you're too dependent on markets and things like that. And there are things that are a little more subtle that can serve, depending on someone's attitude or their place in life, can serve them better.
Yeah. If you have the majority of your money in the stock market when you're getting ready to retire, and that those first couple years that you're retired, that the markets are down, it's very difficult to make up for that, because not only are the markets down where your portfolio's down, you're pulling money out to spend. So that's adding insult to injury, because you need the income to meet your living expense needs. So if it was in your overall plan to know that the market could dive 20, 30, 40, 50%, which it has historically, that has happened in the last 24 years multiple times, you need to have a plan in place to be comfortable with that, or a plan in place to not have that happen. And if you can do one or the other and have those things going into retirement, it makes it easier. And it gets down to the old adage of living within your means for people who are still working, paying yourself first, and just saving as much as possible.
Yes.
When you get to retirement, you're typically coming down maybe a tax bracket, maybe 2 to 12% less in taxes for a lot of the folks that I work with. That's a savings. You're not paying payroll taxes anymore. You're not contributing to your 401ks anymore. So a lot of people think that they need a lot more income than they really do.
Interesting.
And so Social Security timing of when to turn that on, maybe there's a pension there, and then squeezing as much juice from the portfolio that you can safely with the right amount of reasonable growth potential, and reducing and eliminating the fees to save money, and reducing and eliminating as much as possible taxes, not just now, but in the future. If you can do all of these different things, it's more money in your pocket, and your portfolio is sustainable and going to last a hell of a lot longer versus the alternative.
Well, for sure. Worry, just like hope's not a plan, worry's not a plan either. Just because you're so concerned with something doesn't mean it's going to turn around. It takes some action. It takes a plan. It takes dialing 904-232-8760 to Adam Wolf and the Wolf Retirement Navigation Team, or send up that appointment. There's the big contact button, top right of the page at wolfretirement.com. Well, Adam, thanks for spending some time today walking us through this. And we didn't even talk about specific plans. Why? Because everybody's plan is different. And we have so many other episodes that deal with annuities or life insurance or facing the market or different things like that. So be sure to check out that full library of different tools that you can have in your retirement tool belt or different parts of your retirement portfolio. Again, on Apple and Spotify and under the media page at wolfretirement.com. But again, thank you, Adam.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing this, Doug. And it's always a pleasure, especially being up here in Atlanta.
The pleasure is mine. We also thank all of you for listening as you do. And these episodes come out roughly every 2 weeks. If you heard something you like, just hit that share button, send the link over to somebody you know, and be sure and subscribe. As again, these episodes come out roughly every 2 weeks. Hit that subscribe button, then you don't have to think about it. Just like the standing appointment on mine and Adam's calendar to record. It's there, the first whenever of whatever, and we do that recording. Well, he is Adam Wolf, President, CPA, and CFP of Wolf Retirement Navigation. We thank Adam. We also thank our producer, Rob Scott, behind the glass on the ones and twos there, getting this published and put out the show. And we will have another episode of Your Way coming shortly here on Jacksonville's Retirement Coach. Thank you and have a great day.
Investment advisory services offered through Coil Capital LLC, a registered investment advisor. Wolf Retirement Navigation LLC and Coil Capital LLC are not affiliated. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. No investment strategy can guarantee a profit or protect against loss in periods of declining values. Opinions expressed are subject to change without notice and are not intended as investment advice or to predict future performance. Past performance does not guarantee future results. Consult your financial professional before making any investment decision. This information is designed to provide general information on the subjects covered. It is not, however, intended to provide specific legal or tax advice and cannot be used to avoid tax penalties or to promote, market, or recommend any tax plan or arrangement. Please note that Wolf Retirement Navigation LLC and its affiliates do not give legal or tax advice. You are encouraged to consult your tax advisor or attorney. Annuity guarantees rely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurer. Any references to protection or benefits or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products or services. Fixed insurance and annuity product guarantees are subject to the claims paying ability of the issuing company and not offered by Coil Capital LLC. Florida Insurance License Number W016816.